are there kind of, could you maybe give a few recommended books for a Bigfoot researcher or like an aspiring one to have on their bookshelf?
Absolutely. To me, the required reading, like the essential ones, Ivan T. Sanderson's Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life, I
Okay.
think is an incredible. Some of there's some antiquated stuff in there just because it was published in 61. He was writing it through the late 50s and
Mm,
aggregating information and then published it in 61. So a lot of discoveries have happened in the interim, other fossil apes, and we know much more about the living apes too. But it's a tremendous work. John Green's The Apes, Sasquatch, The Apes Among Us is a classic. In terms of books that were written by scholars or scholarly books, academics, etc., Kranz's book, I think, is one of the best. Meldrum's Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. And
yeah.
genuinely, I think Bindernagel's The Discovery of the Sasquatch is one of the best. I
Yeah.
think that's an incredible book. There's a lot of other ones. I've got a huge library of Sasquatch and books related to other mystery apes too. And then a lot of books from relevant disciplines, physical anthropology, evolutionary biology, ecology, et cetera, et cetera. But that Bindernagel book, I think, would be, if I had to recommend one to someone to start, it would be that one because it's a great overview of the subject as a whole. And it also addresses so many of those answers. If such animals do exist, why haven't we acknowledged it or recognized it? And he paints a beautiful case. He
Mm.
mounts a strong argument for that. But man, there are so many other good books that see the subject from different angles and various angles there. I eventually will compile a list of all my favorites and put it up on my website there because there's
That would
so
be
many that,
awesome. Yeah.
I'm constantly reading and there's nothing more exciting for me than when like I find something new and devour it and get into it. I also tell people too, like there's a number of those books that I reread every year, just
Oh,
year after
really?
and
Okay.
have for that 20 years almost,
Oh, wow.
and people will say, "Oh, the book doesn't change," and it's yeah, but you do. You
Yes, that's a
change
good.
it. There are things so many times you cross over these lines and you're trying to absorb them, but then somewhere down the road you meet a witness or you have an experience yourself or you meet another researcher who provides an insight and it just like changes a little bit or you go to these other locations and then you reread that same passage a year later and suddenly it connects in a different way things in it that
Mm.
you couldn't see before because you didn't have some like real world context to place that in. And so a lot of those things I do recommend like reading over and over again. It's the same with anything that like I'm sure we've all had movies that we loved when we were
Right.
young and that you watch them again as an adult. Some movie that you loved as a kid that you thought was fun, and then you watch it as an adult and you're like, man, this is heavy. There's some real adult
Dude,
moving,
for
powerful
sure.
things in this, but you couldn't see it as a kid. So again, the movie didn't change, but you did. And I think those books provide a lot of I can't tell you too how many times some pattern will emerge from the data to me that I've never heard someone talk about explicitly. And I'll be
Mm.
like, I've found something. I've discovered something new. And then I'll go reread Sanderson and I'm like, oh, he
He
talks
was
about it.
on it. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
1961, he
Yeah.
picked up on this same trend that other people haven't even talked about since then. And so there is a lot of, I think if you read those 5 books, Sanderson, Green, Meldrum, Krantz, Bindernagel, as a
Yep.
starter, that's a pretty solid education on the subject as a whole. And then you can expand out a lot from there.